Good morning, students. My name is Rosalia Malundilange, and I'm going to take you through Mathematics for Business. The code is MFB0S1. It's a first-year subject, first semester. My contact detail is as shown on the screen if you would like to ask questions based on your assignments or for preparations for your exams. The presentations here is based on your May examination. We are going to start with fractions. Most of you have problems when it comes to solving fractions. Okay? When it comes to fractions, we have rules that you have to follow. When you are adding fraction and subtracting fractions, the denominators of the fractions have to be the same. I hope you know what is a denominator and what is a numerator. Denominators are the numbers below and the numerators are the number on top. Now, for addition and subtraction, the denominators have to be the same. For the first fraction, for the addition, we have 2 over 3 plus 3 over 7. The denominators are not the same. The denominator of the first one is 3 and of the second one is 7. So we have to make the denominators the same before we can add the numerators. Okay, let's quickly do it here. We have 2 over 3 plus 3 over 7. How do we make the denominators the same? How do we make the denominators the same? Is by multiplying the denominator and then we get the common denominator, which is 3 multiplied by 7. And what is 3 multiplied by 7? 3 multiplied by 7 is equals to 21, which means the denominator that we need to have here have to be 21. So what we do is we multiply the first fraction with the denominator of the second one, which is 7. We are going to multiply 7 with the first fraction, and then we multiply 3 with the second fraction. Where is the 7 and the 3 coming from? Is the denominator of the other fraction. So for the first one, we are going to have 14 over 21 plus the second one, we have 3 multiplied by 3, we get 9. 3 multiplied by 7, we get 21. Now the denominator is the same, we can just add the numerator. And that will be 14 plus 9, and that gives us 23. Okay? This is the right way on how to add fractions. Then we move on to subtraction of fractions. When you are subtracting fractions, the rule is still the same. The denominators have to be the same. We quickly do it as we did in the first one. We multiply the first fraction with the denominator of the second one, and then the second fraction will be multiplied with the denominator of the first one. If we see here, our common denominator will be 55, which is 11 multiplied by 5. So we have to multiply 6 by 5. If we multiply 6 by 5, we get 30, and then 11 by 5, we get 55, minus 11 multiplied by 7, we give 77, and then 11 multiplied by 5, we get 55. Now the denominator is the same, we can just subtract the numerator. Okay, we get minus 47. Let's not forget to simplify the fractions if possible. Okay? Then we move on to multiplication. Multiplication is one of the easiest. The denominators don't need to be the same. You just multiply the numerator with the numerator and the denominator with the denominator. Now we have 5 over 3 multiplied by 4 over 7. 5 multiplied by 4 is 20, and then 3 multiplied by 7 is what? 3 multiplied by 7, let me just move this. 3 multiplied by 7, it will give us 21. That is the easiest one. You don't need to make the denominators the same. Just multiply the top number with the top number, the denominator with the denominator, and you are done. When it comes to division of fractions, we have 11 over 13 divided by 21 over 9. Okay? The rule here is you have to reciprocate the right hand side fraction. What is on top comes down, what is down goes on top. And then this sign will change to multiplication, and then it becomes simpler for us. It will be 9 over 21. Then you multiply the numerator with the numerator and the denominator with the denominator, and then we get 99 over 273. Okay, I hope that is clear. Then we quickly move on to the next topic, which is measure of central tendency and dispersion. In measure of central tendency, we want to find one value that will describe the data. But for dispersion, we want to know how dispersed the data set is. For example, we have the scores of 7 students at IOL, and below there you can see it's written ungrouped data. Okay, it's ungrouped because nothing was done to the data. The data was not grouped together, so it's just something that is raw. What do they want us to do with this data? They want us to calculate the following measures: the mean, the median, the mode, the interquartile, the range, and the quartile deviation, the variance, standard deviation, mean deviation, and coefficient of variation. Okay? For the mean, we just add everything together and we divide by 7. That one is known by everyone, isn't it? Then the median, we arrange the data set from the smallest to the highest, and then we see what number is in the middle. For the mode, is the most frequent element in the data set, which is 68. Now you need also to know how to define what is mean, median, mode. Mean is the average of the data set. In the assignment that I marked recently, most of you are writing mean is what we think of. If you think of as mean is that, what is the real one? Because when you say you think of, it means it's not the actual thing, isn't it? Then the median is the value in the middle of an arranged data set, and then the mode is the value that appears the most. Then you have a problem with finding the quartiles. How do you find quartiles? Okay, if you look on the screen, I have written positions there. You first need to know what is the position of the quartile. Now for you to find the position of the quartile, for the first quartile, you say n plus 1 divided by 4. Your n is the number of elements in the data set. You add 1. The answer you divide by 4. Okay? Then for the first one, it indicates that our quartile 1 is on the second position, and our quartile 3 is on the 6th position. The 2 and the 6 that you got, this is not the value of the quartiles, but the position of the quartiles. Okay? Now you have to arrange your data set, and then you have to identify which element or which number is on the second position and which number is on the 6th position. The number on the second position is 50. That is your quartile 1. And then on the 6th position, we have 75, and that is your quartile 3 value. Now for the interquartile range, is the difference between quartile 3 and quartile 1. So 75 you minus 50, that will give you 25. The quartile deviation is even more simpler. It's just the interquartile range divided by 2, which is Q3 minus Q1, you divide it by 2. The standard deviation, the formula is as seen on the screen. It says the summation of all the x's minus the x bar. We know x bar is mean, right? We know x bar is the mean, and then you square it and you divide by n minus 1. So the step 1, what you do first is you have to find your mean. Remember the data set that we are using here is the previous one of the 7 IOL students' marks. Now the mean that we got was 65. Okay? Now what is the second thing? The second thing is for you to subtract the mean from each score. Okay? You start with the first score until the 7th score. You have to minus the mean. The answers that you get, you have to square them in step 3. Why do you have to square them? Because the formula says square all the scores minus the mean. Okay? When you finish squaring them, then you have to sum them up. This sign means sum. And then when you are done with summing up, you have to divide it by the total number of elements, divide minus 1. Okay? Now, if you see on the screen, we have sum up, we got 1034, and then we have to divide it by 6 because it's 7 minus 1, and we got our our variance to be 172.333. Okay, then your standard deviation always comes from the variance, and the standard deviation is just the square root of the variance. Okay, then the mean deviation is also very simple. If you look in step 2, you have minus the mean from each score, right? Now what you do is those answers, you have to put them in the absolute. These two things where I've written the numbers inside are not brackets, but is absolute. What does absolute mean? It means whatever is in those sticks, we call absolute or modulus, becomes positive. Okay? If we look at the third one, 50 minus 65, that's supposed to give us negative 15. But because of the modulus, it becomes positive. Then you just have to add it together and you divide by 7. And that is your mean deviation. And it always carries a lot of marks. And then the coefficient of variation. This is just your standard deviation divided by the mean, and you multiply by 100. The standard deviation, we got 13.13. We divide it by the mean, is 65. You multiply by 100, you get 20.2%. Remember, anything that you multiply by 100 is percent. Then we move on to grouped data. We start with the mean. The first one was ungrouped, because there was no classes. But if you look on the screen now at the number of orders, it says 10 to 12, which means all the numbers between 10 and 12 were brought together and they were counted. That's why you have at F, which is the frequency, there were 4, and 13 to 15 there were 12. Okay, now this is grouped. The way we calculate this grouped data is not the same as we did with the ungrouped. Okay, for the mean of the group data, you have to multiply the frequency, which is the second column, with the midpoints. Now you have to create the column of midpoints. Because what you are given is just the first table, then you have to add the other columns for you to get your results. How do we get the midpoints? For example, the first one, for the class 10 to 12, you have to add 10 and 12, and that will give you 22, you divide it by 2, then that gives you 11. For the second one is 13 plus 15, and that gives you 28, divide by 2, it gives you 14, and it continues. Now when you are done, you have to create a fourth column where you are going to multiply the frequency and the midpoint. Okay? 4 multiplied by 11, 12 multiplied by 14, and all that you need it for you to find your mean, because the formula of the mean says mean, or x bar, is equals to the summation of frequencies multiplied by the midpoints divided by n. And this n is the same as the sum of frequencies. And then when you do that, you get your mean. Okay, when it comes to rounding off, round off your answers to 2 decimals or more. Okay, then we move on to the median. The median, to find the median, you use the formula on the screen. It says Lm plus n over 2 minus big F divided by Fm, everything in the bracket multiplied by I. But we have defined what is n, what is f, what is fm, what is I, and what is Lm. Okay? These things are very simple to follow. Now, for you to find your median class, first you need to construct a cumulative frequency distribution. Okay? And then you have to know which one is your median class. And the median class is found by dividing n over 2. Okay, let's go to the table. This is our table, the previous we used. Okay, if you look at the table, we have added a column of cumulative frequency. I hope you know how to find the cumulative. The first number remains as it is because we are adding a 0 which is on top, and it doesn't change anything. It remains 8. Then 8, you have to add 14. The 14 that you are adding is the number below the first 8 in the second column, and it gives you 22. 22 plus 12, it gives you 34, and we continue up to the last one. And the last number in the cumulative is always equals to the total number of frequencies. Okay? Now that we got the cumulative frequency, we said for us to find our median class, we have to say n divided by 2. N is the same as sum of frequency divided by 2. The sum of frequency is 50. We divide by 2, we get 25. Now with this 25, we have to find the first value greater than or equals to 25 in the cumulative column. The first one is 8 is smaller, 22 is smaller, 34 is greater than 25, and is the first one. So that class of 21 to 30 is our median class, but it's not our median value. Okay? So what do we do now with that 34? The 34, we have it. We used it to locate our median class, which is 21 to 30. Now, since these classes are 5, it doesn't mean that the one in the middle is the median. No, it depends at which number in the cumulative is the first one greater than or equals to the result that we got by dividing n over 2. Okay, now let's quickly find the value of the median. The median will be L, the lower limit of that class is what? Is 21. We put 21. And then the formula says plus, we open bracket, n is 25 divided by 2 minus the big F. That big F is the cumulative frequency of the class before or above 34. Before 34, there's a 22. And then we let's not forget to multiply everything with the class width. The class width is the difference between the upper limit and the lower limit, or the upper bound and the lower bound, which means you have to take the upper, which is 10, you minus 1, and then the class width is 9, and then everything is divided by the FM. There is the frequency of the median class, not the cumulative frequency, but the frequency of the median class. Now if you look at this, we have 21, 25 divided by, n is not 25 but 50, isn't it? Now 50 divided by 2, it gives us 25. Now 25 minus 22, it gives us 3. Now this 3 have to be multiplied by 9, and then you divide by 12. 3 you multiplied by 9, you get 27, and then 27 divided by 12, divided by 12, you have to get 2.25, and then you add 21, then your answer is 23.25. Okay, this is pretty easy. You just have to follow the steps. Then we quickly move on to the mode. The mode, everything is also defined there. Is LMO plus the change in 1 divided by change in 1 plus change in 2 multiplied by the what? By the class width. Okay? Now, if you look at the table there, then our mode, first, which one is the model class? Is the class with the highest frequency. Our highest frequency there is what? Is 14. So the lower limit of 14 of that class where 14 belongs is what? Is 11. We add in brackets, it says change in 1. That means is the frequency of the model class minus the frequency of the class above. Then you multiply it with the class width. We divide it by the frequency of the model class minus the frequency above plus the frequency of the model class minus the frequency of the class below. And if you work out that, remember first you have to work out all that, and then the answer that you are going to get, you add it to 11, and that will give you the correct answer. Okay? Then we quickly move on to simultaneous equations, substitution and elimination method. Okay? When we are talking about substitution method, for example, if we look at the first question there, we have x plus 2y equals to 11, and then 2x plus y equals to 10. we have to make one of the variables subject of the formula. If we make x subject of the formula from the first equation, we have to take 2y on the other side. You have 11 minus 2y. Now this, you have to substitute it in the second equation. Where there's x, you put 11 minus 2y, and then everything else remains the same, and that gives you the answer of 10. That is what it means. So you have to open up this bracket, and this will give us what? 22 minus 4y plus y equals to 10. Okay, let's collect like terms. If we collect like terms, we will have negative 4y plus y equals to 10 minus 22. Minus 4 plus 1 will give us minus 3y. And this 10 minus 22 will give us minus 12. If we divide by negative 3 on both sides so that y stands on its own, then we get that y is equals to what? Y is equals to 4. Okay? Now that we got the value of y to be equals to 4, we can substitute it in either of the equations. Okay, if we put it in the first one, then we are going to put a 4 here. Remember, we are not done, we only got the value of y, so we also need to get the value of x. So it will be 2 multiplied by 4, which is 8. Okay, now this 8, we will have x plus 8 equals to 11, right? Then x is equals to 11 minus 8, which is equals to 3. That is substitution method. Now in the exams, when you're asked to use substitution method, you have to follow the rule. If it says elimination, you have to use elimination, not which one is easier for you. Now for elimination, it's pretty simple. Just go through that one. Because of time, we'll not be able to go through each and every example there. But it means everything in this presentation is very important for your examination. Okay, then we look at equations of a straight line. We have y equals to mx plus c. That is the equation of a straight line, isn't it? Y is the dependent variable, m is the gradient or the slope, x is the independent variable, and c is the y-intercept. Now they always like asking, find the equation of the straight line that passes through the coordinate 3, 1, and then 2 and negative 1. The numbers in the coordinates are always in the form of x, y. Okay? Now, for you to find the gradient or the slope, which is m, you say y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. y2 we can take from the second bracket is negative 1 minus the first bracket is 1 divided by what? 2 minus 3. Okay, and this will give us minus 2 over minus 1, and that is equals to what? This is just 2. So your gradient is 2, isn't it? Now the y-intercept, which is c. C will be, you use this equation, y equals to mx plus c. Then m is what? M we got 2, and then we have to take any of the coordinates. If we take the first one, which is 3 and 1, x there is 3 plus c, and y is 1. Then we have 1 minus 6 equals to c. Then c is equals to what? Minus 5. So the equation of the straight line is 2x minus 5. And that you get all your marks. Okay, then we move on to proportions. You have a problem with proportion. There's 2 types of proportion. There's direct proportion and indirect proportion. Now, the way you solve for direct proportion and indirect proportion is not the same. Okay? What happens in direct proportion is when one quantity is increasing, the other quantity will also increase. But in indirect, when one quantity is increasing, the other one will decrease. Okay? Or vice versa. Now if we look at the first one, that one everyone can answer. But look at indirect proportion. It says 9 lecturers can mark 130 scripts in how many days? In 4 days. 9 will do it in how many days? In 4 days. Then The question is, how many lecturers? The lecturers are here. How many? They are not known. We'll mark it exactly in 12 hours. Now, since this is hours, you have to change the days to hours. We know that there is 24 hours in a day, so 24 multiplied by 4 is 96. So here you don't use 4, but you use 96, because if it's hours there, it should be hours there. Now what do? You have to multiply this with that and this with that. We don't do cross multiplication because it's not direct, okay? So you are going to say 96 multiplied by 9, and then that gives you 864, and then you divide it by 12. You divide it by 12, then it means it's 72 lecturers that are needed to mark those papers in 12 hours. Read on simple and compound interest, and all the best for the exams. Okay, thank you very much.